That's good to see. Inshallah, all of you guys can listen. Um, we will be starting shortly. Let me just bring up the presentation, Haroon, and then we'll start soon.
Sounds good.
Maybe Haroon, you might want to do a little introduction to our team and my team. You can do a little introduction of yourself. So I'll let my team go first. Asim, why don't you introduce yourself, and then Fareed, and then Ismail.
All right, yeah, sure. So my name is Asim Ahmed. I am currently a high school senior here in Brampton, and I am a member of the I3 Social Events and Professional Development team, working along with these amazing gentlemen to bring you some of the best advice from some of the best people in our community. And inshallah, I hope you guys can learn a lot from this, as I am also learning here. So I can now carry it on to Fareed.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Haroon Chaudary. I've been part of I3 since about 2016, and I'm currently, I guess, a TA with the I3 Institute, and inshallah I'll be co-hosting the event alongside Brother Asim.
And Ismail, do we have Ismail? Okay, I think Ismail is a little bit MIA right now.
Yeah, I think Ismail, he just got here to a little before everyone, so I think he's AFK.
Okay, no problem. Inshallah, I'll introduce myself. Wa alaikum assalam. Who was that?
Ismail. I was
Ismail.
just playing right now.
No problem.
Welcome back, bro.
Ismail, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, no problem. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Ismail Sarali. I am a 16-year-old sophomore in high school. I've been with I3 for into 4 years right now, since 2017. And I've really enjoyed my time here. It was really helpful to help me advance myself in my deen and also my personal life as well.
Amazing, mashallah. And my name is Ahsan Zafir. I am currently a quality engineer with a medical technology company. And then I love volunteering. So I am the team lead of I3 career development team. And just you can see with my amazing team fellows, Asim, Fareed, and Ismail, just working with them to make sure we bring content and we do monthly speaker series to help the Muslim Ummah and to make Muslim career professionals more known to our community. If anytime you need some mentorship or you just want some knowledge from these guys, more than welcome to. This is our goal. We're gonna create a whole Muslim network, so everyone has access to these personnel, and they can, gain mentorship from them. They can gain advice and recommendation. So inshallah, today we have Brother Haroon. Brother Haroon, would you like to introduce yourself to the whole team and to everyone in the Zoom chat right now?
Yeah, sure. My name is Haroon Chaudary. I'm currently working as a clinical research coordinator at LMC. We're doing currently COVID-19 vaccine trials. And I graduated from Atlantic University School of Medicine, and I've applied for a residency. Currently interviewing, and I'm planning to, inshallah, once I get a residency, then I'll be doing that instead of working at LMC.
Mashallah. That's great to hear. Where is Atlantic University?
Atlantic University is in the Caribbean island of St. Lucia. I believe it's no longer in service. It's closed since I graduated.
Oh no. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, at least you got your degree, right?
Yeah.
At least you got your degree. That's good. Mashallah. And you're currently working with the COVID-19 files, or you're currently working with the vaccine development?
Yes, with the trials. We're doing human trials, clinical trials with the COVID-19 vaccine. That's another one that's in development too. You've heard of already, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, not allowed to talk more about that.
Okay, that's awesome. Man. I think some of us are expecting that maybe we might get VIP treatment for COVID vaccine, but I don't think that's gonna be the.
I'm sure you guys can sign up for clinical trials, and I'd be happy to try it on you.
Inshallah. We'll just wait like 3 more minutes, and then inshallah we'll start. Okay.
Sure.
Does anyone from the chat room want to introduce themselves and just introduce themselves and know why what they want to gain out of this event.
I'll go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Thalia. I'm a college student. I study political science and history. I'm not interested in the doctor field. I've just come just to see what this is about, to see if I can learn about other things. I'm interested in being a political analyst or a teacher, but I'm willing to learn about other fields.
Okay, mashallah, it's good to know. Yeah, today's event is primarily towards people becoming doctors, but no problem at all. Inshallah, any knowledge that you can gain will be beneficial to you. All right. Haroon, I'll be loading the PowerPoint on my computer, and I'll kind of share my screen. And then as we're just asking you questions along the way and I'm having discussion, just let me know when you want to change the slides or which slide you want to be on. And inshallah, I'll be the one coordinating that. Okay?
Okay.
One more minute, inshallah, we'll start. We got 16 participants. Okay, we'll start now. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. And if you are joining in, my name is Ahsan, and I'm currently the team lead of I3 Career Development Team. Today, I have my team with me, Asim Ahmed, Fareed Chokdai, and Ismail. And we have our guest speaker, Haroon Chaudary, who is a doctor today with us. And I don't need to do an introduction. He himself is going to give him a great introduction himself. So inshallah, let us begin. Haroon, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Haroon. Currently, I'm working as a clinical research coordinator at LMC. We're doing COVID-19 vaccine trials. I graduated from Atlantic University School of Medicine with an MD. Before that, I went to the University of Toronto, Mississauga for my bachelor's. I'm going to, inshallah, apply to residency in the future. Haven't done that yet. But I'll share my journey with you and I'll show you guys everything that it takes to become a licensed MD in Canada or in the States. So let's begin with that. All right, so
Asim.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
First, before you start, I just want you to talk a little bit more about how you got to your position. So what is your background or your degree?
Yeah, sure. So after high school, I went to the University of Toronto. I pursued a bachelor's degree and in life sciences. And after that, I got into medical school at Atlantic University, which is in the Caribbean. So after having graduated from medical school with my degree, it makes me an MD, but it doesn't give me the license to practice. And in order to get the license to practice, you need to do a residency. And so I'll be talking to you guys about the examinations that you need to do. And well, everybody basically knows the path that it takes to get into medical school. And I'm going to be touching on that in more detail. But I'll also be talking to you about what happens after medical school and all the things you need to do in medical school to be successful.
Okay, so if we get a little bit more personal and talk about how you got to choose this career, so could you talk about how you actually came across this field and what inspired you to pursue this field?
Well, first it was my parents' dream for me to become a doctor. But I explored my own options. I looked into engineering. I looked into, becoming a paramedic because I felt like it had more action. But as I learned more about the profession, as I got more hands-on experience with it, I realized that there's nothing else that I can see myself doing. It was just, it was respectable, it was rewarding, it was noble, and it just it felt like I can help people for the rest of my life and earn the blessings of Allah at the same time. And so that's why I chose this profession.
Subhanallah. All right, that's actually really good, and that should be inspiring to a lot of people, because a lot of us, like youngsters like myself, we look towards finding how to apply Islam to our careers and look for something that could be more fulfilling in that aspect. So that's actually really that's a great light. So I wanted to ask you a little bit specifically about undergrad, so we could go more in like specific sections of how to become a doctor. So could you like go a little bit over what to expect in undergrad? So like in your undergraduate degree, what kind of extracurriculars you came across, or something that that surprised you that you didn't expect?
Right. So in undergrad, what really surprised me and something that I actually didn't like was how unorganized I felt the program was for those who don't actually want to graduate with a bachelor's degree, who are just looking to actually go into medical school. So to get into medical school, you need at least 3 years of a bachelor's degree, which means you don't actually have to graduate with a bachelor's. Life sciences, of course, is, as everybody says, the best way to get in. But why? It's because in life sciences, you take the courses that are a prerequisite for you to get into medical school. But what most people don't know is that you can do an arts degree or a music degree and still take those same courses, calculus, chemistry, biology, as electives and get into medical school. And actually, if you pursue an easier degree and take the courses you need as electives, you can actually achieve a higher GPA, and it makes your application more interesting to the person who's going to be interviewing you when you apply for medical school. So that's something I actually didn't know about. I wish I had, and it would have made my journey a little bit easier.
Okay, yeah, that's really nice. So we were also looking at after undergrad. So basically, the transition usually into becoming a doctor is writing standardized exams like the MCAT. So I'm sure that you came across those, and you can talk about it in detail. But could you go over how those actually work, or why you have to give those exams?
Right. So most of the medical schools in Canada and the US require you to write the MCAT. Some medical schools have their own exams, and I think McMaster University is one of them. They have their own exam, which means even if you've written the MCAT, you have to write their exam. So the MCAT, well, in my opinion, the MCAT is an outdated sort of a system to screen applicants. In truth, what happens is that you get way too many applicants and you need more criteria to discriminate them with. And that's part of the reason why it's so difficult to become a doctor. You need good GPA, you need a good MCAT score, then you need community service, you need 3 letters of recommendation, and you need to be involved in some sort of research. The reason it's so difficult is because there are so many people applying. They need even more criteria and better criteria to select the few that they can. So some of the universities, as I mentioned, MCAT, are doing a little bit better. Like McMaster, they're doing a little bit better. They have their own exam. And part of the purpose of this exam is to see if you have what it takes to graduate from medical school, to be successful in medical school. Because of course, they don't want anybody to get in and then not finish because of how difficult it is. There's also another exam, it's called the Casper. It's a personality exam that most medical schools now are making their students, their applicants take. And what it does is it judges your personality and your decision-making skills. It plays these little videos for you of, some injustice happening to somebody or some sort of other scenario like that. And then it asks you questions like, what would you do? What advice would you give to this person? And what they want to see it is if you have personality-wise what it takes to make it through medical school.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's nice. So they're actually like looking at more than beyond the test grades.
Yes.
Okay, so sorry, go on.
And Haroon, maybe you can explain this diagram on how to become a licensed MD. I think we got into like the undergrad and the postgrad and the MCAT. So maybe you can kind of walk through us on how you became a licensed MD, the steps that you have actually listed out in the presentation.
Yes, of course. So this is a basic, the minimum requirements to become an MD. So the first thing you need to do after high school is do 3 years of an undergraduate study, which is just, you can graduate with a bachelor's degree or you can just do 3 years. And I'll talk about this in more detail on the next slide. After that, you have to write the MCAT, and after which you are eligible to get into medical school. Given that you do get into medical school, then you need to write your USMLE or MCCQE examinations, based on which you are able to apply for a residency. After the residency is where you pick your specialty. When you're applying for a residency, that's where you pick if you want to become a cardiologist, a pediatrician, neurologist, psychiatrist. That's where you pick that. So based on what you get into, that will be your specialty for the rest of your life. If you ever want to change your specialty, you're going to have to come back and do your residency all over again. After finishing your residency, you register with the regulating authority of that province or state. So for example, here in Ontario, we have the College of Surgeons and Physicians of Ontario. And after registering with them, you can get your license to practice independently without any supervision. And after that, you can work at a hospital or open your own clinic.
Okay, good. For the license, how many years do you need of experience?
So once you finish, actually, you don't have to finish your residency to get a license to practice. It's good if you do, because then you can become a specialist. You need, depending on the state and the province, you need at least 2 years is the minimum, I think, of residency you need to practice independently.
Okay. And during the med school, did you choose your specialization, or you just had some general specializations going on?
No, so in medical school, you don't choose your specialization. You can pick electives, and then there's also cores that you have to do. So cores include general surgery, internal medicine, family medicine, psychiatry, gynecology, pediatrics. Those are your cores. Then you can pick your electives. And for my electives, for example, I chose orthopedic surgery, emergency medicine, trauma, ICU. But that, again, that's not me picking a specialty. That's just me picking electives that I am interested in. The specialty you pick when you're applying for residency.
Okay, cool. Jazakallah khair for answering that. And Asim, yeah, continue with the questioning.
All right. Before we continue, there's one concern from the chat. So they're asking that they thought that medical school does not want you to actually have a science degree, and they prefer an arts degree. So is there actually like a preference for the degrees?
There isn't a preference that, there is no such preference. You don't have to have a science degree, like I said, but you need to have certain prerequisites. If we can go to the next slide, I'll talk about the prerequisites that it takes to get into medical school. So in this slide, you'll see that it takes 3 years minimum of undergraduate to get into medical school. That's equivalent to 15 credits at UFT or 90 at York, depending on the system that the university is using. And the GPA that they calculate is actually your most recent 10 credits. So if after 3 years, you don't have the GPA to get into medical school, you can do an extra year because they're only going to look at your last 10 credits. You also need to volunteer for community and charity events and take part in medical research. And this will make you competitive to get into medical school. And if you can go to the next slide, I'll talk about the particular courses that you need to take. So you need 1 year of biology. That's 1 credit at UFT, 6 credits at York, 1 year of chemistry, 1 year of calculus, and 1 year of social sciences. If you do a science degree or if you do a life sciences degree, these courses will already be a part of your curriculum. But what I am saying is if you do an arts degree, you can take these courses as electives, and the rest of your course load will be easy and will give you a higher GPA.
Awesome. And just on the note of the last 10 credits, so you can take any course in your last year, and those only last year courses will count towards your CGPA for the med school?
Exactly. And this is a general overview of the requirements. I'm sure every university has their own. For example, some universities don't even require you to take the prerequisite courses that I just mentioned. But since most of them do, it's good for you to take them.
Okay, okay. Did any of these courses prepare you for MCAT?
Yes, so the biology, chemistry, and calculus part of it did prepare me for the MCAT. The MCAT also has psychology and social sciences on it, and the psychology and social science electives that I took also helped me prepare for the MCAT. But apart from that, the MCAT has a section on it called critical thinking and reasoning. For that, you actually have to do practice questions for the MCAT. You can buy packages of practice questions. You can do around 1,000, 2,000 practice questions. And that not only helps you get into the mindset of the exam and the kind of questions that they're going to be asking and the knowledge that they're looking for, but it makes you so fluent in their language that you'll start to read a question and you'll know exactly where this question is headed and what they're going to ask you by the end of the question. So doing practice questions is actually one of the best ways to study for the MCAT.
Okay, okay. And just one final question. I think maybe our viewers do want to know that. Is that for MCAT study, did you take any external help, for example, like an institution or a coaching site, or did you just, did the practice test yourself and you just did self-study?
I mostly did self-study for the MCAT. I bought books that help if you can that have like the particular criteria or the topics that are going to be asked on the MCAT. A year of biology, chemistry, calculus, it will help you, but it won't give you the exact items that will be tested in detail. So a book, any book, I've used a couple of them. Kaplan is a good one. But I do honestly believe that practice questions is the best way to actually do well on the exam.
Okay, awesome.
One more thing. So for the MCAT itself, you said that you don't choose your specialization in undergrad. So is that kind of like an SAT where everyone writes the same exam every year?
Sorry, can you repeat your question?
So like you said that you don't have like a specialization in undergrad as you're preparing for the MCAT. So that's kind of like the same type of exam that everyone's writing across the world.
Yes, so the MCAT is standardized and it's the same exam around the world. They're testing the same topics.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. Let's kind of go to the next slide.
Yes, so once you get to apply into medical school, you need your undergrad transcript, you need your MCAT transcript, you need 3 letters of recommendation, and then you have to write a personal statement. So your personal statement is basically it's an essay on why you want to become a doctor, why you think it has it in you to become a doctor, and how you're going to go through the hardships that medical school is going to throw at you. So as I mentioned, your undergrad transcript, they're going to be calculating your GPA based on that. In your undergrad transcript, you need to have your prerequisite courses that I mentioned, biochem, calc, English, and your letters of recommendation. Now, one of them should be professional. So it should be from a boss. One of them should be from a professor. And another one can be from a place that you volunteered at.
Sorry, where did my presentation go? Yeah, there you go. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So these are the basic requirements for you to get into medical school. And then we can go to the next slide.
Yeah.
So this is basically what medical school is going to consist of. It's 2 years of lectures. They're called basic sciences. And then it's 2 years of clinical clerkships, and we all call them rotations. So in your 2 years of lectures in medical school, you're going to be taught anatomy, histology, molecular biology, physiology, pathology, psychology. All of those are going to be taught to you in just 2 years. After those 2 years, it's going to be all rotations, which is basically where you are at the hospital as a medical student and you are shadowing other residents and doctors. So part of your rotations, as I mentioned earlier, you have to do cores and electives. So your cores include general surgery. So you will actually either be observing or helping out a little bit here and there. Like, for example, I was asked to, suture wounds after the surgery is completed. So then I would help with the suturing. In other specialties, like for example, pediatrics, family medicine, you'll be asked to independently, interview the patient, see what they're here for, write the report. So that includes 2 years. So that's basically the 4 years of medical school are split up like that, 2 years of lectures and 2 years of rotations. In your third year, though, you have to start writing your USMLE or MCCQE examinations. And I'll talk more about them in the next slide.
Just a note on your clinical rotation. Did you do your clinical rotation in Canada, US, or in the Caribbean?
So the way the Caribbean schools work is that the first 2 years of medical school, the basic sciences happen in their campus in the Caribbean. And then the second 2 years called rotations happen at various hospitals that in the US. So I did my rotations in Chicago.
I see, okay. And what was the learning experience like in Caribbean? Is it with like American teachers and American doctors, providing all the content, or was it different from the North American style?
It is a little bit different from the North American style. It's you have to do a lot of self-study because the professors are not as good as the professors you would have in Canada or the US. So you have to do a lot of self-study. You also have to deal with some accents. The professors might be from India, Pakistan. They might be from Nigeria, for example. This is just based on my experience. Or they might have a Jamaican accent. So sometimes it's hard when you're learning such complicated medical terminology in different accents. And a lot of times when I, having learned it pronounced that way, when I was doing my rotations, I would pronounce it the wrong way. Yeah, and then you have to do a lot of self-study because, like I said, they're not as good as the professors over here.
Okay. And what was the environment like in the Caribbean? Like I know most of us kind of imagine Caribbean as beaches and water nearby, lots of partying, lots of free flowing. But yeah, what was like the overall lifestyle like in Caribbean on med school?
Well, it's exactly like that if you're going there, as a tourist. But as a student, you have to isolate yourself from that. And as a student, you're going to be living there for 2 years. That's difficult. If you're leaving your home, your friends and your family to go anywhere for 2 years, it's difficult. Some of these islands, these Caribbean countries, they're not exactly as developed as Canada and the US. So you're going to find it a little bit strange. The infrastructure is not going to be, the roads are not going to be as they are here. The hospitals are not going to be as they are here. The school itself is not going to be as it is over here. And then the weather is always really hot and really humid. And like I said, there are a lot of distractions, partying, the tourists, the beaches, the resorts. And accommodation, I think, is the most difficult thing. We are used to a certain lifestyle over here, especially in the GTA. Everything is 10 to 15 years old. The roads, the houses, the infrastructure, everything is really clean. So when you go over there, the houses, the accommodations that you're going to be living in, you have to, get used to how it is over there. For example, there's floods that happen there. There's hurricanes. Sometimes there will be centipedes, lizards, all these tropical animals because it's a tropical environment. Yeah, so it's a lot more difficult to adjust over there when you're going to be staying there for 2 years, and especially when you're going to be pursuing something that's as difficult as medical school.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we just actually have one question from one of our participants. So Rabika is asking that on average, how much time did you take to study for the MCAT? And do you recommend buying the latest edition of the MCAT test prep books, or will older editions post 2015 will be sufficient?
Well, since I've taken the MCAT has actually changed. So I would recommend buying the latest edition because the topics that they're testing might be different. The questions might be asked in a different way. Even their scoring system has changed. When I took it, each section used to be, out of 30 scores in total. And now it's 132. So it is different, and I would recommend buying the latest one. As far as studying goes, given that I was also in undergrad when I was studying for the MCAT, I would study for around 2 hours every single day, just for the MCAT.
Cool, cool. I'll just go to the next slide.
Okay. Right. So this is really overwhelming, but these are all the exams that you're going to have to do in medical school to actually become a licensed physician. So as you can see, you have 4 exams that you have to write for just the US and 3 exams that you have to write for Canada. If you're planning on applying to both, which is what I did just to make myself, give myself more options, you have 7 exams that you're going to be writing. Each exam is 8 hours long. It has 300 multiple choice questions, and the fee to attempt each exam is $1,500. So it's not an easy thing to do, graduating from medical school. It's significantly more difficult than getting into medical school. So the USMLE Step 1, for example, or the MCCQE 1, that's what you're going to be taking in your 3rd year of medical school. And then the rest you're going to be taking before you graduate from medical school so that you can apply for a residency. And these are required for you to apply for a residency. And residency, as I said, is the objective of any doctor, because without a residency, you are not able to practice medicine. You're not licensed to practice medicine.
For the US medical license examinations, how are they compared to Canada? Is there any different structure, or is it similarly the same?
Yeah, it's significantly different. The US examinations are a little bit longer. They're 8 hours compared to Canada's 5 hours. I like the US exams a lot more. They're more thorough. So the way that the US exams are set up, they will give you a huge amount of detail in the question that they're asking you. The question will be a paragraph long. But after having given you all that detail, they will ask you a very, very detailed question, right down to the molecular level, right? The Canadian exam, in comparison, is they will ask you a 1-line question, very, very vague and general question. And the answer will be very vague and general as well. So I found that a little bit challenging, because when you ask a question that's so vague, out of the 4 choices they're given me, all 4 of the choices could be true. And so the question is asking me, but which is most true? Whereas the US exam, only one of the choices is true. The rest are actually false.
Now, just one of my follow-up question is that obviously during this examination and this med school undergrad, there must have been some failures that you encountered on the way. And them failures could be, struggles, some obstacles that really, sometimes set you back. Do you have any failures, struggles, or obstacles to share?
Well, one of my failures, I actually failed the MCCQE 1. I failed it quite terribly. I did 4,000 practice questions. I studied for a month, about 6 hours every single day. And the night before my exam, I just couldn't sleep. And so the next day I was feeling a little bit drowsy, and I had a whole lot of coffee. And on my exam, I just couldn't focus. And I actually ended up failing the exam. And that was disheartening, honestly. It was difficult. It made me feel like I can't do it. It made me feel like I have this false sense of accomplishment. It was difficult to get over that and to get the courage to write the next exam, or to rewrite this one again. But yeah, I was honestly, I just had to explain to myself that it was a bad day, that I couldn't get enough sleep, and that it's not like a lapse of knowledge on my part. And so I studied harder for the next exam, and I made sure that my schedule is, perfect, just, for a week or prior to the exam. And what you really have to focus on is stress management, because stress actually gets in between you and performing well. And managing stress is not easy. And one of the things that helps manage stress so much is praying. and remembering that any victory is from Allah, and any calamity and adversity is from Allah, and just having faith in Allah that He will deliver you and He will carry you through.
No, absolutely. The Deen is important. And maybe, when we are at the topic of Deen, could you expand on how specifically Deen helped you, move forward in your journey?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the big, another, sorry, I'll just speak about another adversity that happens in medical school is that, for example, when I went to the Caribbean, I was leaving behind family, I was leaving behind home and any sort of familiarity. So being over there in this strange country with strange people around me, and then having this very stressful curriculum, you begin to feel very lonely and very just lonely. Well, lonely is the word for it. You really have to, and I actually realized that I started praying more frequently. I started having just a deeper understanding of what Iman is, what belief in Allah is, right? Because I feel that before going into medical school and before being faced with all these adversities, I was praying, I was fasting, but I was doing it out of routine, out of ritual. And once these calamities struck me, then I was actually doing it with all my heart. And when I made dua, I was making dua with all of my heart. And so I felt that it brought me closer to Allah in that sense.
No, absolutely. That's very good to hear. Deen is important, and especially, maybe you can expand on this myth as well. But there is a stigma that the doctors have the highest suicide rates. And that's something we want to avoid. Did you, come across that, or any of your teammates or any of your fellows while you were in the medical journey?
Yeah, so it's difficult because there's a lot of factors that contribute to this. I would say one of them is that you barely get enough sleep. You don't get to eat as well as you would at living at home. When I was doing my clinical rotations in Chicago, I had 12 to 14-hour shifts at the hospital. It would take me 2 more hours to commute. And so out of 24 hours in a day, you're spending about 20 of them outside your house, and you have 4 hours of sleep left. You can sleep for those 4 hours, or you can eat, or you can do some chores, or you can study. And it's difficult to do all of that at the same time. And then you're losing track of your family. You don't feel like you're in touch with your family or your friends. And then on top of that, being in a stressful environment, like for example, in my rotation, I was constantly running around, doing CPR, doing surgeries, getting yelled at by the attending physicians if something goes wrong. And they will yell at you because, it's life or death, and you can't afford to mess up. And so all of that. And one day I remember there was a patient that I was doing CPR on, and we went on for about 26 minutes. And at 30, the attending physician called the time of death. And so that day was significantly hard on me. And so, like I said, that day, coupled with bad eating habits, bad sleeping habits, lack of friends or family to talk to your problems, to talk about, with your problems, it contributes to like a significant amount of depression and stress. So
Yeah, no,
yes,
absolutely. I completely understand. And again, just from your experience, it is a tough journey. It is not something that can be achieved within, just within a day, within a night. It takes long hours. It takes a lot of time to prepare for it and invest your both time and money. But I'm really glad to hear that you use Deen as a balancing of Deen and dunya to achieve your journey. That is something that we must all strive for. Okay. So
Right. If
we'll
you don't mind,
continue.
before we move on, you've talked about like some of the like drawbacks or some things that held you back. So I'm sure that there were a lot of achievements as well along your journey, because you had such a long journey around so many places. So maybe you could also expand on like what really like inspired you, or what achievements were there that really made you stand out or different from others.
right. So one of the things that I really that really helped me was When I was in medical school, I took part in a lot of volunteer activities and charity work and community events. We set up a free clinic in the Caribbean for the local population to come and get checked out. And even when I was doing my rotations in Chicago and I was doing family medicine, I was in this one area that had a significant like Muslim community. And so they would come and they would give me so many du'as, and I haven't done anything. I'm not the doctor. I haven't prescribed any medicine. All I've done is just listen to their problems with a little bit of compassion. And I would get so many du'as for that. So it's the du'as that cheered me on, the feeling, the helping the community, doing volunteer work, opening a free clinic in the Caribbean. These are the kinds of things that cheered me on. These are the kinds of things that made me feel like I'm on the right way, because helping people and making them feel this good cannot be, the wrong way. I'm definitely doing something that's right. And inshallah, like I will reap the fruit of this reward of this work. And then keeping in touch with my family and hearing from them their appreciation and their just cheering me on, telling them that I'm doing the right thing. That all of these things really helped.
Okay, great question, Hassan. Inshallah, we'll move forward. So I'll go to the next slide, Haroon.
Mm-hmm. All right, so once you've graduated from medical school and you've written all your exams, now it's time to apply for residency. And this is where you're going to choose which specialty you want to go into. So the criteria to apply for residency, you need your medical school transcripts and you need a letter from the dean. You need 3 letters of recommendation again. And again, you need a personal statement. And again, your personal statement is going to have now, instead of why you want to pursue medicine, it's going to be why do you want to pursue this specialty? So if it's pediatrics, why do you want to pursue pediatrics? What is pediatrics? It's you're specializing in kids. So maybe talk about why you love kids, why it's rewarding for you to work with kids. Maybe you find them cute. Maybe it's because they have such a long life ahead of them, and you want to make sure give them a fighting chance. And here your letters of recommendation are going to come from your attending physicians when you were doing your rotations, all of them. And so on the next slide, that's the last one. So you're going to apply for residency, you're going to verify your credentials. That's the Medical Council of Canada for Canada, and ECFMG, which is the Education Commission for Foreign Medical Graduates. That's for the US. When you're applying, you're going to apply through CARMS for Canada and NRMP for the US. You're going to select your program. So what do I mean by program? By program, I mean University of Michigan cardiology. That will be your program. Or University of Ottawa for family medicine. That will be your program. After that, you interview. Once you're done interviewing, you have to submit something called a rank order list. So you have to create a rank of what's your number 1 choice, your number 2, number 3, number 4, until you're until you've accounted for all the interviews that you had. Then a computer algorithm actually matches you to just one. So you don't get offers. It's not like when you're applying for undergrad. You don't get several offers and you get to pick one. No, you submit your rank order list, and after that you get one match into one program that you applied to. And that's it. Once you're doing your residency, you have to do, like I said, 2 years minimum to get the license, or you can finish your residency and still get your license. And that is how you become a licensed physician. And one thing I want to add is that if you don't do your residency, you will, by education, be a doctor. You will have your MD, but you won't have a license to practice. And here in Canada and the US, with how regulated the medical field has become, with an MD, there are very few options. If you don't get a residency, there's very little you can do with your degree. You can go into research, but you can go into teaching, but that's about it.
Hey, Haroon, could you shed some light on the interview? Because I've heard that medical interviews are not the easiest interviews. They're not like the job interview with the behavioral questions. Right. Instead, they really want to see that are you committed to the program? Are you committed to having a lifelong career as a doctor? So just maybe you could go over your interview experience.
Right. So your interview for when you get into when you apply to medical school, you're going to have an interview for that as well. And when you're applying to residency, you're going to have an interview for that as well. They're similar. Again, so these interviews, they really want you to prove to them that you have what it takes to get to the end. Because a lot of people drop out, and there are high suicide rates in medicine. A couple of my friends who are doing residency, one of them is taking antidepressants and the other is taking an anti-anxiety. So it's not easy emotionally either. So on these interviews, one of the things that just remember that their underlying goal is to see if you have what it takes, if you're tough enough to make it to the end, to see it to the end, because they're investing a lot of money in you, and it's a loss on their part if you don't finish or if you choose to quit. So on these interviews, actually, they don't ask any question that could be on the paperwork, on your transcripts, on your resume, on your personal statement, your letters of recommendation. They don't talk about anything. They don't repeat anything that you have already submitted. They're going to ask you questions that are, some of them are going to be, like critical thinking questions. One of the questions I was asked, I was interviewing at the University of Dalhousie, which is in Nova Scotia. And the question I was asked is, how many traffic lights are there in the province of Nova Scotia? Right? How many windows are there in New York? How many emails do you have in your inbox? None of these questions have anything to do with, becoming a doctor. What they're trying to see is if you have an analytical mindset, and if you have critical thinking skills, and if you can work through this on the spot, they're going to put pressure on you. And so the way to tackle these questions is that you have to remember there's no right answer or wrong answer. They're trying to look at the process of thinking. They're looking at how you come to an answer, how you arrive at an answer. Another question that I was asked was, you're the conductor of a train, and on the track in front of you, there are 6 people tied to the tracks. Your orders are to go straight, but you can take a left, and if you take a left, there are 2 people tied to the tracks over there. So essentially what they're asking is, would you kill 6 people because that's what you're asked to do, or will you divert and kill 2 people instead? Again, there's no right or wrong answer, and they can argue this with you. If you say you're going to take a left and save 4 people, they're going to say, so you're not going to follow orders, you're not going to follow protocol, you're going to rebel. And if you say that you're going to go straight, they're going to say, do you not have any critical thinking skills? Are you just blindly going to follow orders? So again, there's no right or wrong answer. You really have to explain the process of your thinking. And other than questions like this, they really want to know if you have, some sort of a social system, like a social circle. Are you close with your family? Do you have a spouse? Do you have friends? Are they going to be there with you? They love it if you say that you have, you're going to get married, or if you say you're already married and you have a kid, or your family is going to be moving with you. They love it because they know that you can go home and you have somebody to talk to about, with what happened that day, or to de-stress, and somebody who will just cheer you up. So these are the things that they're looking for in the interview. They're not going to go over anything that you have submitted, like your transcripts or your exam scores.
Mm-hmm. And is the interview based on just one program, or is it one interview and then you guys selected the programs, or is for every program you choose, it's the interview based on that?
No, so it's the interview is different for every program, but the only questions that are different based on what program is why this program, why pediatrics, why cardiology, why surgery.
Okay,
those are
awesome.
the only questions that are different.
Okay, awesome. And just I guess for our viewers, some of us are still maybe kind of confused on what is your what was your day-to-day role in the clinic, in the clinical that you did. And did you experience any failures on clinical? Maybe any learning experiences, any struggles, any adversity that may have, got you somehow shocked or in anxiety and stress? And how did you just cope with that?
Yeah, so for clinicals, what my day looked like, I would wake up at around 3 a.m. and get to the hospital by 4. When I got to the hospital, I would round on all the patients that are under my care, under my attending physician's care, hence under my care. And so I would go to them, and you have to be there in medicine. You have to be outspoken. You have to be people friendly. You have to be a social person. You have to have good manners. You have to just basically, for example, here, waking up a patient at 4 a.m. and expecting them to cooperate with a medical student is not is a difficult thing to expect. So I would have to wake up the patients, do it nicely, ask questions. The questions like, how are you doing? Do you have any complaints? Did you have any nausea, vomiting, diarrhea? How are you feeling? And you have to write these things down. Then you have to ask the nurses for their, labs, any x-rays that they had done, any blood work that they had done, what are the results? So around 5 a.m., my attending physician would come, and then I would present all of this to them. If I made a slight error, I would get yelled at in front of everybody, the nurses, the other medical students, sometimes even the patient. And that's not easy. Sometimes they will ask you a question and they won't stop asking you until you get it wrong. So if you answer right, they'll ask you a follow-up question. Then you answer right, they'll ask you a follow-up until you get it wrong. And they're not doing this just because they're mean people. They're doing this because they want you to do your job properly. They want you to be a good doctor, and they want you to be able to handle stress. One of my friends who was in medical school, she got asked a question. She kept getting asked questions until she got it wrong. And then the attending physician, he wouldn't stop. He kept telling her to give him an answer until she started crying. And then he said, go to the washroom, clean up, and come back and answer me. Right. So there's really no mercy, because you really have to know what you're doing. And you have to remember that this is the best for you, because it's making you a stronger person. And they want to make you a strong person because they want you to be a good doctor. So again, after presenting these patients to my physician, he would ask me, like, what are you going to do next? What would you do next? And so I would tell them that this is what I would do next, whether it's give them antibiotics or take them for surgery. Anyway, we would then start our surgeries. I would sometimes help, sometimes I would be observing. By 1 o'clock, we would be done the surgeries, and then I would do post surgical follow-ups on the patients who we had surgeries of. And I would probably leave around like 5 or 6 p.m. And then you have to go home and you have to take care of, like, you have to study, of course, but then you have to do like household chores, laundry, cooking, cleaning, talk to your parents.
Yeah, no,
I had a question. I guess we're going kind of back and forth with the dean questions and like just your everyday roles. But I guess one thing that we all encounter, especially when we're working as Muslims, like there's different struggles, specifically, I guess, with your daily salah, or when it's Ramadan, of course, you have to fast. So were there like any, like, I have no clue when it comes to being a doctor. So in your everyday life, like are there certain struggles, like, how do you deal with praying your salah, or how do you deal with fasting in Ramadan? Because I know it's very hectic going, seeing patient to patient, it's like back and forth.
Yeah,
so can you
definitely
talk about that for a bit?
Yeah, so with hospitals, it's really easy. Most hospitals have a multi-faith room or a prayer room, and you can go there and pray salah. Sometimes you might find somebody else there going there at the same time, and you can do like jamaat. Jummah, there's any hospital that I've been to, they've had enough Muslim doctors to have like Jummah salah in the multi-faith room. If you were in surgery, then going between patients, you can always find time. But if you're in surgery, then sometimes you have to do qaza. When it comes to fasting, sometimes it's difficult. And I'll talk to you about one of the worst experiences that I had while fasting. So when you're going into surgery, you're wearing a scrub cap, a mask, something to protect your eyes. Then you're wearing a gown, you're wearing gloves. No part of your body is actually breathing. And then after wearing a mask, it's really hard to breathe through your nose as well. And the surgery involved an x-ray. And so I was wearing lead to protect myself from x-ray radiation. So now I've been standing 5 or 6 hours wearing around 60, 70 pounds of lead. And I'm actually working with all this, like, personal protective equipment, and I'm fasting at the same time. So what happened is that it was an orthopedic surgery. Orthopedic just means bones. So we had made the cut. We had exposed the bone, and we were using a rotary saw to cut the bone. And so when we did, a lot of blood suddenly like just spurt all over me, and it made me really queasy. And I'm really good with this. I don't feel queasy, but I think that day is because I was fasting and I actually didn't have that much to eat for suhoor. And I like really actually had to excuse myself, leave, and I had to drink some water. So I had to break my fast. That can get difficult. It can get difficult to run around so much without any water or food, and then having to do surgery. So that was one of my most difficult experiences with fasting.
Wow, subhanAllah. Jazakallah khair for sharing.
Oh, it's very enlightening experiences. I don't think most of us ever thought about that, and it can be tough. From the outside, it always looks glittery and fabulous, but in the inside, it's definitely a tough career. What I do want to ask you is that did any part from Islamically, like did any skills overlap from Islam to the medical journey? And I'll just kind of give an example. What I mean is that sometimes in the business dealing, kind of our prophet was a businessman, and we are taught how to do business. So we can apply that to the corporate world as well, like being honest, being compassionate, being kind. Maybe you want to shed light on did any of your Islamic knowledge or experiences kind of transition into medical school as well, or medical journey?
Right. Well, the first one, really obvious, is to be kind and to help people. So not only do you get good deeds for doing that, not only do you get sawab for doing that, but you have to do this in this profession. And on that, I would like to add, doing it with sincerity and doing it with compassion, it takes it even a step further. And if the patient is Muslim, or no matter what faith they are, they will actually pray for you. They will actually have well wishes for you. And that's what I encountered, especially when dealing with the elderly. For example, if you have an elderly patient and you have to examine their foot, instead of asking them to take their shoes and socks off, they don't have as much flexibility as a young person would. So then you can take their shoes and socks off and you can put them back on, and you will actually get and speak to them nicely, and you will actually get not only their blessings but Allah's blessings. So that's one of the things. Another one is steadfastness. So as you are steadfast in your salah or in your fasting, you have to be like that with studying. And this, so the same discipline that you have for religion, have that same discipline for studying, and build your schedule, your studying schedule around salah. So maybe like Asr to Maghrib, you'll study, create a schedule like that. And I think that will really help. And these are the some of the overlapping qualities.
Okay, great. Jazakallah khair for sharing. No, definitely those are some of the values we want to have, regardless if we choose a medical journey or not. Again, doctors are kind of related to high financial. If you do become a doctor, you kind of get the status and the fame, and you have, it is highly paid career. But again, at the end of the day, it seems like you have a passion for it, doctor. You are doing it for the sake of Allah and for just helping the community and the mankind. So that is huge. You will get a reward, inshallah.
Inshallah, thank you.
We have actually one question from one of our participants. Amina Abid asks, how do you get yourself to study when you just don't want to? Where do you get the motivation to study when you don't have any motivation?
So what you have to do, honestly, you have to find this perfect, you have to find what works for you. Does stress shut you down, or does stress motivate you? I'm the kind of person, stress motivates me. If I scare myself enough, I can get myself to study for hours. If I tell myself that if I don't get a residency, I'm absolutely there's no other path to success for me if I don't get a residency, so I have to do well on these exams, that will scare me enough to study. But for some people, stress shuts them down. And so knowing yourself, you have to see. So if stress shuts you down, then maybe do something, have a good day, like do something fun, and then study the next day. So it has to be a balance for me as well. Like I can't stress myself all the time and scare myself into studying. Sometimes it doesn't work. So sometimes what I have to do is go out with my friends, spend a good time with my family, And then I'll be like, okay, so I've had my fun, and now it's time to study. But see what works for you. Scaring myself really works for me.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. That is good advice. I think scaring is it helps at certain times, but definitely I think we gotta use Deen as well. If we are steadfast in our goal, and we know that we wanna do for the good of community, and we do it with a sincere intention. Inshallah, Allah will make us successful. Do you before we head on to more questions, are we finished with the presentation, or do we have anything more to cover?
No, so this is basically the presentation's just the basic, requirements and summary of what it takes to actually make it in medicine, not just make it to medical school. Medical school is very early on the road to medicine. And again, like I said, getting into medical school is significantly easier than graduating from medical school and getting a residency. So it's a long path. It takes like undergrad 3 years, 4 years of medical school, then 4 years of residency. And every single day is going to hurt. So you have to really want it. You can't be doing it for your parents. You have to do it for yourself. You have to be passionate about it to see it through all the way to the end.
Okay, awesome. So just to all the participants, this will be a Q&A session now. So if you do have any questions, you are welcome to chime in and ask the questions on either the chat, or you can have a discussion with them as well. So one of the questions we are having from Mifsal Farouk is that how did you choose which medical school to attend?
After my 3 years of bachelor's degree, I looked at my scores and I realized that I don't have what it takes to get into a Canadian medical school. There's only 13 in Canada, 13 English-speaking medical schools. There's 3 that are French-speaking. So definitely wasn't cut out for medicine in Canada. When I looked at the medical schools in the US, the ones I could get into, they had extremely high tuition fees, so I couldn't afford them. So naturally, the next place to look is either your home countries like India or Pakistan, or to the Caribbean. So I looked at the Caribbean medical schools, and there are around 30 of them. Some of them, again, are really expensive, and some of them are a little less expensive. They have varying criteria to get in. Some of them don't require the MCAT, some of them do. Some of them require a bachelor's degree, some of them don't. So based on what I had 3 years of undergrad and having written the MCAT and the prerequisites that I had, I looked at, I shortlisted all the medical schools where I could get in. And after that, I tried to find somebody who had gone to those schools. And after Atlantic was the one where where I found that most of the people I found had gone there, so that's why I chose to go there.
Okay, sounds good. Farheen Ahmed just asked the questions that what are your opinions on the BS and /MD program?
So I think what she's talking about is a combined bachelor's and MD program. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really good. I think if you do well in the BSM, if you do well in the bachelor's part of the MD program, then you're pretty much guaranteed to get into the MD part of the program. So yeah, if you can get into a BSMD program, it's really good for you. It's going to be laid out really well for you, the curriculum, the courses that you have to take, and that really helps. Because going through undergrad separately and then applying to medical school separately is a little difficult in the sense that when you're in undergrad, you have to pick the courses very carefully.
Okay, cool. We have another personal question, and hopefully you can answer this one. But in today's days, obviously, taking a loan comes with riba. Now, whether it's the easiest education or the hardest medical journey, but it does come, we're not all financially well off, and it does come with us taking loans from either the banks or the government. So how have you avoided taking riba on the loans?
I avoided as long as I could by taking interest-free loans or loans that don't have any interest until, for a period of time. But for medical school, the amount of loans that you have to take, it's very, very difficult to find one that will not have any interest. And so you have to, I had to take an interest loan. I took a student line of credit. And yeah, it's difficult to avoid it, honestly, but this could be a motivating factor for you. If you don't want to take an interest, a loan with interest on it, then work even harder and get into a school that qualifies for OSAP. And so you can avoid interest altogether.
All right, Jazakallah khair. We don't really have any more questions. Does anyone have any more questions or comments? They can even chime in on their experience that they have if you're currently in the medical journey.
If you don't mind, I wanted to ask something. Judging from what you've said, I'm guessing that doctors have to be like real people's persons, and like as you've seen it. So I was wondering, like in your placements, or even in undergrad, or in as you said, your rotations, did you really get that opportunity to be more with people, or were you mainly focused on like getting that experience and working like in the background?
Well, when I was doing undergrad, I was pretty shy as a person. I would avoid any, I would avoid people or like groups or events. But having said that, I had to take part in, community service events and volunteer for organizations and extracurricular activities so that I could have a competitive profile to get into medical school. But really, and even the first few times that I talked to patients, I was shy. But it's something, it's like a habit. It comes with practice, like anything. And you have to be kind, you have to be outspoken, you have to be friendly, you have to be able to go into a room and just completely change the atmosphere of the room, make it an optimistic one, because this is a profession where you're going to have angry patients. They might be angry because they had to wait 2 hours in the waiting room. You're going to have anxious patients. They might be anxious because they're about to hear some bad news, or they're worried about their health. And sometimes you are going to have to walk into a room and give bad news. So how to do that in the best way possible? You have to really understand that you have to be a social person. You have to be kind and compassionate. And sometimes sometimes when the patients are anxious, for example, you have to be able to walk into a room and, like I said, create an uplifting atmosphere. Say hi. If there are kids, if your patients are kids, then you have to be able to go in and stop them from crying and cheer them up and make it a fun experience for them. Because if you do that, it's actually going to be easier for you to do the exams that you're doing, to listen to their heart, to listen to their lungs, to check their temperature. So you have to put on a different face when you are going into an examination room to see a patient.
Right, Jazakallah khair. We actually have a lot of questions coming in. So the first one I'll ask is from Ravika Ashraf. Do you have insight into the MD/PhD program?
I personally think the MD PhD program is kind of overkill. If you didn't get into medical school with a bachelor's degree, you can get a master's or a PhD and then attempt to get into medical school, and it would make you more competitive. But to do an MD PhD, you have to look at what you're trying to go into. MD PhD is suitable for you if you are not planning to actually practice medicine, but you're looking to go into like the administrative or the business side of medicine, or if you're looking to become like I said, like go into the administration side of medicine. But if you're looking to practice medicine, MD PhD is kind of overkill.
Okay. We have another question from Mifsal Farouk. Is it more difficult to find a residency in the US if you went to Caribbean school compared to an American school?
Yes. If you graduate from an American school, a residency is almost guaranteed. If you went to a Caribbean medical school, you are considered an IMG, which is an international medical graduate. So it's more competitive for you to get a residency in the US or Canada if you are an IMG. You write the same exams, but you have to get higher scores to be at par with the Canadian or US grad.
Okay. We have another question, is that what's starting your medical journey from scratch at 23 practical? And is it ever too late to get into medical school? What is the criteria for mature students to enter the medical school?
Sorry, what was the second part of the question?
Yeah, so some of our just students or our participants are wondering that is it ever too late to get into medical school? For example, one of the participants is wondering that if starting a medical journey at 23, complete from scratch, is that feasible or not?
23 is still a good age, I would say, to get into medicine. You have to remember, it is a long journey. So you might be delaying some social things that, for example, marriage, you're going to have to delay that. There's no time to, or room for that until you have finished your residency. You can do it while doing your residency. It's kind of difficult. Also, one of the other things is, again, just an emotional, sort of like a psychiatric thing, psychological thing, where medicine is so long that you're going to see your friends become successful. You're going to see even your younger brothers become successful and get high paying jobs and make more money than you. And you're still going to be, maybe trying to get a residency, still finishing up, still in residency. You do get paid in residency, but it's not much. It's not what you would expect a doctor's salary to be. So obviously, the later you get into medicine, the more those factors are going to have an impact on you. But it's never too late to get into medicine. I would say 23 is definitely not too late to get into medicine. You can still make it before you're 30 and have a fulfilling and rewarding career.
Okay, thank you for answering that. Something we actually didn't get a chance to shed light on was volunteer positions. Now, one of our readers, Fareen Ahmed, is wondering how can she get volunteer position to get clinical or medical related experience during high school. Now, I still think high school might be a little too early to find some clinical experience or medical experience, even as a volunteer. Definitely. But even from your volunteer experience, where did your volunteer journey start, and how did you leverage that to your advantage?
So volunteering is something you're going to have to keep doing until you get a residency, because it's volunteering is something that's required to get into medical school. It's required to get a residency as well. So it's something you're going to have to keep doing. There's levels to it. So in undergrad, I was part of the pre-medical club. I was part of the Pakistani Students Association. So those are some of the extracurricular activities. I played sports. Those are also extracurricular activities. When it comes to volunteering, though, I was just based on word of mouth, or sometimes I would just go to a clinic, or like if there's a doctor that, I have a mutual friend or connection with, then I would ask them if I can shadow them. Ask them if you can shadow them. So what shadowing means is that you just follow them around. You just basically see what they do, what kind of patients they see, what their specialty is like, how they deal with patients, what their day looks like. And you can also likewise go to a clinic and ask them, say you want to volunteer. Volunteering at hospitals is significantly more difficult. There's like an application process. You have to apply, you have to interview just to volunteer. I also volunteered at a veterinary clinic. It's not difficult to find. You just really have to ask around. You have to call. You can go in person. You can ask your parents if they know anybody. Ask your friends if they know anybody. Ask your family friends. And yeah, that's basically volunteering in undergrad is kind of like that. Volunteering in medical school is a little bit different and needs to be a little bit like better than that. So, for example, what I'm doing now would be volunteering, right? And I've done other programs like this, where I've organized charity events, and I've organized sort of like seminars, like to educate people on certain diseases that are prevalent in the community, like diabetes, or like mental health care diseases. When marijuana was legalized, I gave a speech on that. I organized a seminar on that. So yeah, these are the kinds of volunteer activities that are recognized for residency. But for medical school, it's something a lot simpler, like just shadowing at a clinic, volunteer at a veterinary clinic, take part in extracurricular activities at your school.
Jazakallah khair for answering that as well. Just on the volunteer, sure that did you have any mentorship during your journey? And how important is mentorship for anyone in life? Doesn't matter if the medical journey, but just did you have anyone to look up to? Did you have anyone that had already gone through the journey and was guiding you?
Yes, of course. So my dad actually introduced me to a son of a friend of his who went to a Caribbean medical school, and so he gave me a lot of tips, a lot of advice on what the Caribbean is actually like, what I have to expect, what some of his shortcomings were, what advantages he had, what he did right, what he did wrong. And I think it's really important to find people who have experience. If you don't have experience in something, find somebody who has experience in what you're going to be doing, because you can build on top of what they did right and learn from what they did wrong. The experience that somebody else can give you is just going to help you appreciate what is to come, right? And not to underestimate the hardships that are going to come. So I had mentors, for example, like this person who were had gone through this this route. Also, when I was in medical school, I had a roommate. His name was Abdul Hamid. He was in senior of medical. He was in 1 year ahead of me, and I just honestly felt like he had everything right. He would pray 5 times a day. He would wear a hat, a turban type, and then he would wear I don't know, like a jubba, like a thobe, and he would go to medical school like that. He would go to classes like that, and he was part of like the medical student, the Muslim Student Association. He would organize the Jummah, and he was my roommate. He would pray 5 times a day. He would even wake me up for prayers. If he made himself something, he would leave some for me. And he studied really well as well. So like I just tried to copy what he is doing because he was successful and what he was doing must have been right. So I copied him, and he was one of the mentors that really, I looked up to.
No, great. That's great to hear. And this is essentially what we are working on at I3 Career Development Team. We want to first of all introduce Muslim professionals to all you participants, and then we want to encourage mentorship. We want to encourage you to start networking with the professionals. And maybe Haroon, you could leave your email address in the group chat for everyone. And if anyone has any more questions or comments, they can definitely contact Future in private as well.
Of course, yeah.
So yeah, we'll kind of just move on to the questions as well. We got 2 more questions. So number 1 is, this is a kind of $1 million questions, but what if you graduated with undergrad with a bad GPA? Do I still have a chance?
Yes, you do still have a chance. There are schools that will accept you, but honestly, they're not going to be good schools. You're going to have to study on your own. Literally, you're going to have to teach yourself everything. I have friends who have gone to bad schools, again, in the Caribbean. They'd had to teach themselves everything. You, like I said, your degree, you write, medicine is the same. Whether you teach it to yourself, no matter what language you learn it in or where it is in the world, medicine is always going to be the same. And the exams that you're writing, the United States examinations or the Canadian exams, they're going to be the same. But it's the part, going to a good medical school, you don't have to do half the work because you have good professors who are teaching you. Going to a bad medical school, you have to teach everything to yourself. So yeah, if you have a bad GPA, you can still get into medical school, but know that your journey is going to be significantly more difficult. It's going to be hard because you're going to have to create your own path, your own road. Your professors won't be doing that for you. You're going to have to teach yourself everything. And so you have to be good in that. And again, what really tells you that when you've made it is when you've done well in the USMLE or MCCQE exams, because that's what's going to get you the residency.
Okay, awesome. One of our last questions is, I think this is a repeated question, but inshallah we'll still ask. When you did fail in your journey, how did you overcome your failures?
I think you're like just talking to my friends, my family, having them tell me that You have to, I feel like sometimes just, you have to, in order to make yourself better, sometimes you have to lie to yourself a little bit and say that it wasn't your fault, and just make yourself believe that it wasn't your fault, and then you'll do better the next time. Or, you have to sometimes romanticize your own life. You can't blame yourself so much for failure that you never get up again. Sometimes you have to say that it was because I didn't get enough sleep. It was because I was stressed out, or it was anxiety, or maybe like the practice questions that I did were not relevant to what came on the exam. So yeah, definitely talking to friends and family, convincing yourself that you have got this, and then praying and asking Allah for help.
Okay, awesome. I don't think we have any more questions. We will be wrapping up in 8 minutes. So I guess if we have any more questions, please feel free to post it in the chat. And Haroon, I will just ask you to maybe just summarize the whole event and just end it on a high note. Any final word or advice or recommendation you would like to give to the future participants, inshallah? Definitely, they're all ears to you.
Of course. Yeah, so I really want to say that medicine is a really rewarding career. For the rest of your life, not only are you going to be respectable, not only are you going to be making a lot of money, you're going to be in a noble profession, you're going to be helping people, and you're going to be earning the blessings of Allah. But all of that is only going to come after you put in the amount of work that it requires to make it all the way to the end. And like I said, in undergrad, all your goal is to get into medical school, but medical school is not the end of the road. You have to graduate from medical school. You have to do really, really well on those exams that I'm talking about, USMLE, MCCQE, because your entire life actually depends on those exams. If you don't do well and you graduate with an MD and you don't get a residency, there's nothing, you can't practice medicine. And there's with how regulated the medical profession is, you can't even become a nurse, you can't even become a physician assistant. Your education is almost going to be useless if you don't get a residency. So make sure you get a residency, make sure you do well on those USMLE, MCCQE examinations, get a good score. Those are what is going to determine the rest of your future, your career. So and yeah, just work hard. It's it's only hard when it's only hard if you are not at par with how hard it is. Once you get up there, once you make it a habit, once hardship becomes a habit, it becomes easy. And yeah, just I mean, make Allah your friend. Talk to him, tell him about your problems. It will help you. Make lots of dua, because making dua organizes your own thoughts as well, organizes your own goals. It helps you understand. Make detailed dua. Don't just ask for to get into medical school or to get into residency or to become a doctor. Ask in detail, like that you get this score on the MCAT, because that's going to help you organize your own goals and your own thoughts as to what score you need on the MCAT. Like it's going to keep your eyes on the prize if you do that. Ask about a particular medical school, ask about a particular specialty, do it like that. And just work hard. Honestly, it's not hard to work hard. When I was young, it was a lot more difficult to study. When I got into medical school, it became so easy to study that I was like, why wasn't I studying like this in undergrad? Because if I studied like the way I do now in undergrad, I would have gotten into a Canadian medical school. So the discipline comes with age, and to have the habits that I developed at this age, if I had those earlier in undergrad, I would have gotten into Canadian or US medical school. So it's not hard to study. Honestly, like I said, everything is a habit. Even going through hardships, you can make it a habit to go through hardships, and the hardships will become easy for you. So study hard and work hard, and just go. You remember that what it takes to becoming a doctor is one of the hardest professions in the world. Being a doctor is one of the hardest things to do in the world. Becoming one is hard as well. And so don't let that demotivate you, though. let that motivate you and help you, like, become one who can go through the hardships. Help make you become strong. Use it to your advantage. Another thing that I like to do is that when I feel like, for example, when I feel like I'm ready for an interview, when I feel like I'm ready for an exam, I don't stop. I study and I review and I practice until I feel like I have gone beyond, until I feel like I will be overwhelmingly good. So for my residency interviews, I didn't stop studying for them or practicing for them until I thought I'm good enough. I stopped when I thought that they're going to be overwhelmed with how good I am. So just be, when you think you're good enough, don't stop. Be even better than that. And just face all the hardships that this career is going to throw at you. Make you become stronger than who you are. And
Yeah, no, great final words and great conclusion. Love the fact that it is whatever skills that you earn during medical journey, it's not only translatable to Islam as well, because you did use actually the most of Islam to actually become successful in your medical journey. But the fact that it's a lifelong lesson, it is a lifelong profession. Especially with engineering and business, they're mostly contained at workplace. When you come home, it's kind of just gone. You just kind of stress out or just wind out of it. But with doctors and with medical journey, it's a 24/7 process. You don't ever stop working. So definitely thank you so much for joining us today and giving a talk. I would like you to just post your email address in the chat, just so everyone can see it right now before we do take off.
You're gonna have to help me a little bit. I don't know how to.
What is your email address? I will post in the chat myself.
Of course. Actually, hold on. I've got this. Perfect. I'm just typing right now.
Yeah, even a LinkedIn, if that is possible as well.
Of course. Okay, that's my email, and my LinkedIn is just Haroon C. That is it. Perfect.
Awesome. Well, if you don't have any more questions from the participants, and if no one wants to really chime in on any discussion, then inshallah we'll wrap it up, and we will call it to our event. Jazakallah khair to everyone attending our event today. We hope that you gained knowledge, and both in the deen and dunya. And if you are again interested in reaching out to Brother Haroon, please use his email address. He is open to mentorship discussion that you want to have. Definitely, he's a great guy for a guide and as well as support. Okay, inshallah. We'll wrap it up. Yeah, my team is very thankful to you that you came out today, prepared the presentation for us, and helped us participate in this event. We'll end it off. Fareed, do you want to end it off with a surah?
Did you say what? A surah?
Yeah, with a surah Al-Asr.
Surah Al-Asr. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wal Asr inna al-insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihati wa tawassaw bil haqqi wa tawassaw bis sabr. Ameen. And again, Jazakallah khair, bro, for your time and for all the input. It was very informative. And barakallahu fikum, Allah bless you.
Thank you guys
Take
for
care,
having
everyone.
me.
Take care, everyone.
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah so much.